So if cancer advocates and experts are advising against thermography, how are the clinics able to stay open? Well, the clinic in Winnipeg says that thermography has the ability to detect the first signs that disease may be forming up to 10 years before any other procedure. We asked them for an on-camera interview and they turned us down, saying if we have any further questions, to take those up with regulatory authorities.
In Vancouver, Irina Kolesnikova diagnoses me with an angry face and prescribes 68 units of Botox.
A little bit here and a little bit here.
When she's done, she says I won't be able to frown, just like her.
Can I see? I cannot.
So you're a doctor?
I used to be doctor like in the Russia. In Russia here, like I'm a naturopath. I'm finished like laser physician certified institute in here.
So you've done Botox before. I'm not your first patient.
A lot. I have thousands of clients.
A 2005 audit worried about pests getting into the Calgary slaughterhouse. In 2006, blood and other liquids were dripping into edible meat. 2 years later, U.S. inspectors discovered pipes filled with blood and dirt.
It's even worse. The government doesn't punish or fine XL Foods for these infractions. It's the Americans who do so by banning their product from the United States. And frankly, Lisa, we wouldn't even know about the history of all these problems if the Americans hadn't given CTV the documents.
Some serious gaps in the system, Bob.
I've seen these documents in which the asbestos industry and insurance companies spoke of taking a mortgage out on McGill so that they could control asbestos research. What do you think their game was?
I think it's a myth. I don't believe it. Again, it's a public university. They didn't do things like that here.
Whatever the intent was, the effect was to alter the literature that was published in a way that minimized the health effects or misrepresented the health effects to say there weren't health effects when there were health effects.
Health Canada tells us Cold Effects has never been authorized for immediate relief, the claim that's made the company millions. It wants corrective actions. The company tells us it's been working on phasing out that old packaging for the past 5 years.
I go on the people, and these people believe in it. Doctors and scientists and stuff like that. I mean, come on.
But a nursing home? One thinks of nursing homes as a place for seniors. This was a young man in his 50s.
Yeah, there was no place else. There was no other option.
A day after the brutal attack, Keith Crotto died. Cause of death, a massive brain hemorrhage. Police records reveal Beliveau said, "I told him to shut up. He wouldn't shut up, so I killed him."
Perché in Canada io so che parte dell''ndrangheta della Ionica Regina, Brancaleone, zona di Reggio, Toronto, Montréal.
Qu'est-ce qui va se passer si on ne prend pas ce problème-là au sérieux?
Da qui a 7-8 anni avrete gli stessi problemi che abbiamo noi in Italia, cioè quelli di una 'ndrangheta sempre più presente nella pubblica amministrazione e nel mondo dell'imprenditoria e del commercio, e quindi una involuzione democratica, cioè la democrazia, giornali, pezzi di giornale, pezzi di televisione, e quindi manipolare l'informazione della gente. Questo è l'ultimo stadio delle mafie.
And his wife said, "I'm glad you called." She said, "Because he needs to see you more than you need to see him."
What did she mean by that? Take your time.
Well, she said he couldn't sleep or anything after because I guess it was You know, it was a horrifying experience for him as well, you know.
J.P. Thibodeau and Diane and their families have become very close friends. He was invited over for a family gathering the day Romeo Cormier was sentenced to 18 years in prison.
I feel that my country has abandoned me. They don't care. That makes me more sad. Is this the country which I served? Is this the country where I gave the youth and my whole adult life? Is this the country where my wife served?
It is, but so far, authorities here keep telling him it's an Indian problem, not a Canadian one.
كنت عايشين 10 months now. I still got 11 to go to them. 5 months down nistum. I got we need meal and we need the skin. Stands don't be so ugly and so to need to get it again. I got it again. So cream after cream. I can get that meat taken each new guys not good.
So if this sort of deal is not allowed, why doesn't Panashway just pay Provincial Airlines for the full amount?
Well, Tony, there are two problems with this. One of them is money. Out of the $7,000 cut rate deal, he actually still owes $1,000 to Provincial Airlines. Plus, there's the more than $15,000 that he still owes from the loan that he took out from the Innu Development Corporation that he used to help fund his campaign. But even if the campaign had the cash, they've got a problem because they've already spent over their election limit, according to Elections Canada.
Well, in the contract, it stated there that the employer will be responsible for our air ticket. So, but what happened was, we are the one who bought our ticket, and then just to cover that, he gave us a check for the amount of the ticket, and then he instructed us to deposit it, the full amount, and then leave it for like a week, and then after a week, he wants us to give it back to him.
After the donation was over, I went and I had a massage scheduled. About halfway through the massage, I started to feel sick. So I went and got on the bus and didn't even make it 2 stops. I jumped off the bus. I had to sit down because I was sick. Got back to the hotel and I was curled up on my bed. I was in so much pain that I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done to myself? You know, what have I done?
She had no one to call. Her contact at the agency in Minnesota was gone for the day. She didn't feel she could call the clinic. Sonia was on her own.
All our lines are currently busy. We cannot transfer your call to an agent. Please try again later.
Every time. Well, I went to the local citizenship office that I knew earlier, and yeah, it was locked, and there was a number, this new 1-888-242-2100 number on the door saying if you call this, you will be helped. So I came back from there. I tried this number quite a few times the same day. And yeah, every time the same thing will happen.
If you weren't sure about thermography before, you may be convinced after seeing this. A breast being squished in a mammography device. Dangers of radiation. It even goes so far to say that mammograms can cause cancer.
With the mammography, of course, people are always concerned about radiation. With the thermographic camera, there's no exposure of radiation.
There are women who do have mammograms every single year, and each time they do, that does increase their chances of getting breast cancer.
How could it get any worse? The barefoot, chained, half-naked teen didn't explain. He ran off to another neighbor's, was taken to hospital. Today, forensic officers are still combing this ramshackle building, searching for clues at 174 Faulkner Road, a name shared by this senior, Edwina Faulkner.
Scary. Terrifying.
Get a life. God, you're a young guy. What the hell are you thinking? I have nothing of value for you. I've spent many years working to get what I get. I don't have a trust fund either.
She's about to get an opportunity few victims of crime do.
Show some respect and look at me.
The suspect is still a little cocky, though.
Take a picture. Dude, you're going to have more pictures taken. What the hell are you thinking? Do you think you might want to tell me why you did this? Why my house?
I would say the women we see, at least 10% of women come to our agency with this type of problem.
A growing number of Canadian doctors won't tell a woman the gender even if it's seen on an early ultrasound. It's their way of making sure they won't unwittingly be pulled into the practice of gender selection. Some private ultrasound clinics insist they take the same stand. Though they will reveal the gender, they won't do it until the fetus is at least 20 weeks old. Too late to opt for an abortion.
So you see that the females are the ones that have been over the last 20, 30, 40 years taking advantage and advancing themselves.
Meanwhile, he says Aboriginal men have retreated into the shadows of our society. Dempsey says it was not always like this. In the past, First Nations men played a central role in their communities. They were the primary providers of food.
Look closely, and there's disturbing evidence plenty more isn't quite right here. A drive outside the capital, and the disparity is in your face. Some 1,600 rudimentary Roma settlements, many with no drinking water, no jobs. This during the EU's so-called decade of Roma inclusion. Unemployment up to 10 times the national average. And life expectancy a third shorter.
This notion that employers are paying substantially less than what Canadians would make is simply, totally, factually untrue.
What is admitted by all, though, is that rules and enforcement are spotty in this country. There are many who maintain it's workers, Canadians and otherwise, who pay for that.
So we've had this long history of importing others to be able to do deadly, dirty, and dangerous work for somebody else's profit. And I think that most Canadians recognize that that's an ugly part of our history.
The Arab Spring, where people are fighting and dying for a democracy, demonstrates that the freedoms we have here in Canada are highly valued. Do we take these rights for granted?
You usually take for granted what you have, and Canada has a very stable democracy in that we're not seeing huge changeover. So I think that unless there's something to really shake up people to believe that democracy is at risk, then I think we're in a situation where it's almost a natural thing to take it for granted.
Media from across the province, the country, and across the border are jumping on the tuxedo stand bandwagon. Even CNN's Anderson Cooper gave him a shout-out a few weeks back.
Just sitting around the table with some people, next thing you know, your cat is running for mayor.